welcome back, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. I haven't seen you in like 5 minutes or so. I'm here with the one and only Josh Iwata. How are you?
Hey everyone. Good.
Good.
Really happy to be here.
Awesome. Tell me about your little bit about yourself. It's been like 5 minutes. I can't talk already.
That was your warm up. Come on.
I know, really.
So I'm a designer from Portland, Oregon.
Nice.
I've been in a lot of different roles. I actually have a little slide deck. Can I put that up?
Absolutely.
Do you want to just jump into it?
Let's just jump into
Okay,
things.
let's just do it.
I figure we lost about half an hour of me rambling, so we might as well just jump into things.
All right. Yeah, I know it cut our time a little short. Okay, so my name is Josh Iwata. I've been designing for about 15 years. I started in illustration. I moved to web design, and then eventually into UI and UX design. I thought it would be fun to show what websites looked like 15 years ago. This was my portfolio website called Fallout Media. I was loading everything through Macromedia Flash at the time. This is what we thought the web was going to look like. It looks pretty different now. So that's a little flashback in time.
Flashback.
The dad jokes.
They've already begun.
I moved on eventually from UI and UX to actually product design, and I helped start a product in a company called Setmore.
Okay.
It's one of the kind of leading online appointment scheduling systems, definitely for free scheduling. If you type that into Google, you'll find it still going strong. I helped start that about 6 years ago, eventually ran that as CEO, and then moved on about a year and a half ago. And I'm now COO with a company called Class Hero. We're an edtech startup. We make math systems for schools, really designed for the classroom, for students, teachers, districts, and really give them all the tools they need to bring personalized learning into the classroom. So that's what I'm doing with my time now. It's a lot of product design still. It's a lot of kind of wearing all hats, being part of a startup.
I love this because you often hear so many stories about the education system just not being up to par with what it is in other countries. And I think that technology, even though it could distract students in some cases.
Yeah.
And if it's done right, it could definitely, empower them to be better students.
Yeah, I think that really is it. We haven't figured out what to do with technology in the classroom yet.
Right.
And we're trying to help solve that problem. And really, it comes down to giving teachers the proper tools that they need in order to, use it effectively.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if the music is too loud, we are going to work on it. We're going to bring that down just a little bit. So what do we have planned for today?
So
at least over the next few days.
Over the next few days, I'm going to be, last time I was here, I actually worked on Class Hero. I worked on the kids app,
Nice.
the student app. And I really like to choose real world problems. I think for me, it helps kind of hone in the design and frame it with some constraints, because that really is a lot of design is about how do you solve the problem within the constraints of the project.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to be working with a real project and a real client that did give me permission to work on this on the air. They're called Weedman Design Partners, and they're based in Portland, Oregon. They're an interior design agency. And we're going to be going through the design process with them, starting with research. So this is that kind of outline that I use. And it's the process that I tell all my clients when I work with them. And everyone has a little bit different process, but I think most designers, this is about what they do. It's pretty standard. So research, which really is about defining the problem, why, in this case, it's a redesign, but why are you doing the design in the first place? And then we'll do block framing and wireframing, move on to mood boards to help define what the design mockups are gonna look like and what that aesthetic is gonna look like. So that's kind of the outline and what we're going to be working on over the next 3 days. We'll kind of see how far we get each day. Yeah.
Nice. I love that you're kind of tackling research in something like this, because it's one of those unsexy things that a lot of designers you have to do, but you don't really want to. You don't want to do it, and in a setting like this, you don't really want to show it off because it doesn't look exciting. But at the same time, it's got to be done. And I think in a situation like this, a lot of people are going to learn things from this, because there's a lot of designers who are watching now, who are going to watch, in the months and years to come, that don't exactly know how to start a project. And I think research is, crucial to getting that creative juice going.
Yeah, I really think so too. I mean, so this is the kind of, to break down the research and defining the problem. The steps that I take is I audit the existing material. So I look at everything they already have, right? Maybe that's nothing, but maybe a lot of times it's a full website, it's brand, it's everything. I research competitors in their space. And then I do a download interview with them. And a download interview is really meeting with them either face-to-face or over Skype and asking all the right questions to try and figure out, what am I trying to do here besides just provide you something new and aesthetically pleasing. Right? And I really think that process is super important. Part of the reason that you have to do it is, if you think about if someone asked you to design a home for them, you wouldn't just build an entire house and then bring them to the front door and be like, here's your home, do you like it? They would start criticizing the wrong things. They'd be like, I don't like those doorknobs, when really maybe they wanted a condo, right? So you have to go through the process of asking them first, what do you want and why is what you have not working, in order to figure out what's the right solution.
Absolutely. And before you go on, I should have mentioned, but I didn't. I'm a terrible host. In about 15 minutes, we're going to do chat and win. So there's going to be fireworks behind us. And one of you will win 100 stickers from Sticker Mule. Always fun. Do you have any stickers on your laptop? You don't.
No,
I don't
I'm a
either.
no sticker guy.
Some people just have a whole slew of stickers on their laptop. And we also have a challenge going on. If you hit that challenge tab at the top right up there above me, you will, let me read this thing because I'm a terrible host today. And so you're invited to design a photo gallery for a mobile or web with Repeat Grid tool in Adobe XD, and you can submit all that stuff right there. So bad on me for not telling you this at the beginning of the stream, but I did. So the challenge is up there, chat and win in about 15 minutes, and I interrupted you. Sorry.
No, you're doing your job.
Not very well, though.
And thanks for joining us in the chat. I'm seeing all these people pop in.
Yeah, and if you have any questions for Josh, just throw them in there and I'll do my best to answer them. Or not, I won't answer them, Josh will answer them.
Yeah, for sure. I want, especially as we go through this and we'll keep it pretty quick and get into XD soon, but as we go through this research phase, I'd love to hear your input on what do you guys think is working, is not working, what is the problem? I think you'll have some good ideas. So let's get into looking at Weedman Design Partners. I'm going to go over here to their website. So we're going to look first at their existing website. And this is their current website. You can see they're an interior design agency. There's not a lot of content on it. It says creating beautiful spaces together. They've got 2 projects that are highlighted, some pretty small testimonials. Then if I click on this menu, we've got this menu, home, commercial, residential, goods, blog, about, contact. So I'm gonna go into commercial and take a look at that. And as you guys are looking through this website, I'd love to hear comments about what you think is or is not working. One of the first things that I'll say about it, and one of the questions I had for them when I did the download interview, is I looked at here, and they have a 1 paragraph about it, but for the most part, they just have images, one at a time. And one of the questions I had was, well, what did you do in the space, right? What did you design?
Right.
Did you design, did you do paint and decoration, or did you do, did you actually change the room and knock out a wall? I really couldn't tell. So one of the things that they thought was working on here was they thought their photography was good, which I agree.
Yep.
I'm not a big fan of this slide scroller because it's kind of restrictive and it doesn't really give you a sense of what all these things look like together.
Right.
It makes you kind of look one at a time with them. Heather says, it's very balanced, but on the divs when highlighted, white band gets highlighted too. Yeah, that is odd. I noticed that too. Let's look at another one of these. So overall, this website is not bad, right? I mean, you could look at it and say, well, you just want a new brand. What do you want? What's the actual problem? We're gonna get into that a little more. So this gives you guys an idea of what their website is. It's basically kind of like a slide deck of imagery for each of their different portfolio projects, right? And then they have an about page. Same format. Every page is just this kind of slide animation format.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when you are, looking, or I guess this is a Portland, Oregon. You're in Oregon as well.
Yeah.
How does this this client come? Did they find you, or did you find them, or how did that connection happen?
So I actually knew this client. They redesigned the entire building that my previous company bought. We bought this big 10,000 square foot warehouse in like the kind of industrial district of Portland, and they turned it and transformed it into this kind of WeWork co-working space, which was really awesome. So I was able to see the depth of their offering, that they could take this shell of a building and like do everything, find the permits. You know, they took the old freight elevator and they put it on a pole in the middle of the building and use that as a conference room. And so they're very creative. So I was in contact with them, and eventually they contacted me and said they wanted to redo their stuff. And I didn't have time, so I said, the only way I can do it is if you let me use it for Adobe Live. And they were like,
smart.
sure, that sounds great.
There you go.
So I'm double dipping a little, but you know, I think
it
you
worked out.
got to do that sometimes.
Yeah.
I've seen some of the comments you guys are writing. Nice photos, low contrast. True. Colorblind viewers may suffer with the current site. Interesting.
Interesting comment.
Yeah.
There's actually a plugin within Adobe XD.
Is there?
It helps with, I forget what it's called. I'll check it. But it helps with accessibility.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
There's a lot of new plugins, isn't there?
There are,
in XD just quite recently, right?
Yeah.
Someone says, include before and after photos to show how much they transform the space. What's the deadline or time frame? So yeah, there's, I think what I'm seeing in the chat is there's a lot of like missing information. Like you don't know what's happening when you look at it. It looks nice and looks pretty, but there's no information, so you don't really know what they did and what they didn't do in the timeline, all these things, okay?
Yeah.
So what I wanna do real quick is look through, so I use this little app called Bear, and
I've heard of Bear. A bunch of coworkers use Bear.
I know Michael uses it. I wanted to look at some of the competitors that I've found. So these are some of the interior design competitors. I just put them into this little note, and we'll click through them and see kind of what the format is. So this one is a little different. This has a lot more on their homepage, right?
Yeah.
They're showing a lot more projects. If I go to their projects page, I'm gonna guess it looks kind of similar to the other ones. So this one is laying them out in a big list. You can't actually click into these projects. You can just slide through a bunch of photos.
Okay.
Which is interesting. It keeps it really simple. It keeps everything on one page, the little blurb of text. This competitor does a kind of a similar thing to them. You can just scroll through a big list of photos. This one, very similar. We're seeing a lot of patterns here, right? And this is what I like to do, is quickly go through competitor websites and then say, like, what are kind of the things that are working? What are the patterns? And the general format for these interior design websites are list out all your images in a grid, click on one, and then basically either one at a time, let the user scroll through the photos, or put them all on the page all at once, right?
I love the photography on all these.
Oh man, so beautiful.
Nice. I want to live in all these places.
Right? This is a really odd UI choice. So you can't scroll. Your cursor turns into these arrows.
Interesting.
Oh, you have to go up there. The menu is hidden.
Huh.
If I click on work, and click on one of these, I again get these. I can't scroll again. I've got to use this side arrow, or it turns into a plus. So interesting, very interesting.
Raphael is asking, did the client provide you the competitors, or did you find them yourself?
It's a good question. I do ask them for lists of competitors, but typically I do a lot of research on my own too. Clients typically know their, what they think are their competitors,
right.
But sometimes you can, through research, you can find other examples that they may not have given you. So one of the things that I thought looking through these is, unlike designers on Behance, where we show our process and we show the story of like what's happened through that design. A lot of designers show the wireframes, they show sketches from their notebooks, all these things, right? None of these interior designers are doing that. They're all just doing finished shots of their work. And so when
it's kind of like Dribble instead of
it's
Behance.
kind of like Dribble. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you don't know the depth of what went into it, and showing the process of your designs actually adds a lot of value.
I think so.
To the end user who sees them and to the clients who want you to do the work, right? I think you can see value when you go through the process. When you see a chef make your food in front of you, it feels a lot more valuable and rich than if someone just brings it to you on a plate.
Absolutely.
So someone says, how about all the project images are full width and each have short explanation? Text can help catching eyes to read and look at the photos. Yeah, I think having some different text throughout the website explaining what the photos are could be useful. So I'm gonna jump back to this keynote real quick. And the initial thing that I asked was, what's the problem? And that's the point of this research. That's the point of going through it with the client. And some of the questions you can ask the client and during your download interview and as you go through this research are what's not working, what's the biggest misunderstanding that clients have, what is working, and what does success look like at the end of this project. So once you have finished the design, how do you know if it's successful or not, right?
Do clients typically know that, or is that something you have to kind of push into them?
Yeah, I think you have to push them, and you have to really kind of like try and pull that answer out of them.
Right.
That's why I think the download interview is a really good idea. When I initially went to this client, they said, we just want a refresh. I was like, okay, well, what does that mean? They said, let's meet, let's talk, and we'll figure out what you actually need and what you want. What we figured out through that conversation was by asking the right questions, we helped define the problem as this, right? So what's the problem? They felt like the overall approach was elegant, that kind of gold W, but it wasn't bold, it wasn't creative, and they felt like that wasn't a good representation of them. Mm-hmm. By asking what do clients misunderstand consistently, I found that clients don't know the difference between interior design and interior decoration. And I didn't know either.
I didn't either. No.
I didn't know there was a difference. And they were annoyed that clients don't know this. And I'm like, you have like knowledge bias, like most people don't know that. Mm-hmm. That's knowledge, like the idea of knowledge bias is, or the curse of knowledge, is that clients have so much knowledge in their heads about their specific area of business, they assume everyone has that too. And so it's up to you as a designer to put yourself in the shoes of their clients and say, you know what, maybe people don't know the difference between interior design and interior decoration.
Right. It's like us knowing the difference between user interface and UI and UX. But if we're talking to a designer or a client who just wants something done, they just figure, oh, you do all of everything. Everything's kind of like design, right?
Right.
But there's actually a very big difference between UI and UX. And some companies like Adobe sometimes have different teams for UI and UX. So it's, you got to make sure that the clients understand these things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as designers, we definitely can have kind of that curse of knowledge where we don't explain enough as to what's going on. So they thought the photography was working really well, which I agree. The photography looks great. Paul was asking, if the client doesn't have a big budget or professional photos, what do you do? I think that's a challenge because especially something like interior design, the photos can really make the website really appealing. But I think there are some lower end approaches. You can find a photography student. There's always someone who is willing or just starting out that can help. You get what you pay for a lot of times, so the client might not get super great photos. But nowadays with smartphones and digital cameras, I think most people can take decent photos of spaces.
Just crank up the clarity, you'll be good.
Yeah, throw a filter on there. And the end goal of what does success look like was they would like to get higher end clients and more complex projects. Right now, they have to, a lot of times clients approach them and they say, we want you to redesign our space, but we're gonna hire an architecture firm to handle this other stuff, like the layout of the home or the addition to the home or the building. And the reality is Weedman Design Partners can handle all that. They have an in-house architect, they have carpenters, like they have all these people they work with, not exactly in-house, but they can organize and arrange all that, and they can do major construction sites. So that's the end goal for them. Success would say, people come to the website, they look at it, and they say, oh, you can do my project. It's within the scope of your capabilities. Someone said, Naman, I don't know I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name properly. Where do we draw the line between intensely creative UIs and the real UIs that can be coded? I think that's a good question.
It is a good question. We get that a lot because, What
do you typically tell people?
It's tricky because there's a lot of designers, I definitely fall into this category where I just design these very elaborate things that I know isn't going to be coded because it probably can't be coded, or if it can, it's probably going to slow down the browser. But it's for Dribble or it's for Behance just to look pretty, right? But I think, one thing I always recommend to people is that they need to talk with their developers. They need to scope out which developers they're working with and see what their capabilities are, because not all developers can code for CSS or HTML or whatever it is. Hopefully they can do HTML, but you really need to know what their limits are. And speaking with developers and knowing a little bit of code will kind of, in the back of your mind, will help you figure out or help you design a little bit better, so that you're not doing these crazy elaborate things that eventually will not be able to be coded.
I think that's a good solution. I mean, if you're a designer and you understand how to code, then you naturally will know like what's possible or not. Yeah. But if you don't, I think as a designer, it's kind of your responsibility. Just like a good architect, you should know what the build-out process looks like of the building your design, so you don't design something totally crazy, right? And then an engineer says, we can't actually do that, right?
Right.
It's not going to be safe. And from a UI perspective, when you're trying new things, I think it depends on the project. If it doesn't work within the boundaries of the goal, if the goal is to be super creative and make something no one's seen before, or for your own portfolio, that's great. But you have to realize that any new, innovative, cool UI is going to come with users who don't understand how to use it. So if that's part of the price you're willing to pay for that project, that could be okay. But if it's not within the bounds of the success of the project or defining the solution to the problem, I don't know that you want to experiment too much with crazy UI for clients. At least it depends, right? What their tolerance level is. Right?
And sometimes simple is best. You don't want to overload a web page, like going back to the Flash days.
Yeah.
Those were some pretty elaborate stuff and designs, but these days it's all about minimalism. And as long as, sometimes you want to go for the better user experience over the crazy elaborate designs.
Yeah, yep. So I'm going to talk about block framing and wireframing. Block framing is not a super common term, but I think most of us do it if we do wireframing. Mauricio says, can I achieve good design without wireframing? I rather work straight to high-res design right away. And so let's talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to go into and start doing it. And I have this little example. My head's in the way of mockup, of kind of block frame, wireframe mockup. And you hear this term fidelity, high fidelity mockups, low fidelity. And to me, this was a good example of block framing, wireframing, and mockups. You're going from low res to high res. And the block frame is really establishing just pure content, just saying where should content go in the layout of a page. Most people who block frame, you don't necessarily need to do it on the computer. I don't think you can see this really, but I block frame on my tablet a lot of times, not my digital tablet. Oh, do you have a?
We do.
Oh, you do.
Fancy GoPro.
Cool. Oh, there. Oh, cool. So I think a lot of designers will block frame like this, which is you're not putting in the details of where the content, items are going to go, like the text, the buttons, all that. You're just literally blocking out content, saying this is where it goes, right? So I'm going to do that digitally quickly to show you guys what that looks like. But to answer your question, I really do think that the process of going through this helps get to an end result that the client is going to be happy with, and that's the point. It's I had someone ask me the other day, like another designer, do you get to the end of a project a lot of times and the clients don't like it? And the answer is no, I don't do that very often because I go through this process. I know by the time I get to wireframes and they've approved those, I know what content they want. And by the time I get to the designs, I know the layout that they've already approved. I have a mood board, so I know the aesthetic that they like. I don't get to the end without knowing if the client is going to like, something very similar to what I'm producing.
Yeah.
So that's the point of those steps. You don't get to the end, you don't put the house in front of the client, and then they say, well, I don't like it. And now you have to build another one. Okay.
I can't tell you how many times I've just like skipped right to the mock-up or the final phase.
Yeah.
And it might look good, but looking at the functionality is just, it doesn't work. And then I usually have to go back to the beginning, redo everything, and then at that point I figured, why didn't I just start at this block?
Yeah, I know. I've done that same thing too. I've spent so long rearranging like the final product that I should have just went back and done the work.
Yeah.
Oop. I was idle way too long.
That's a great screensaver.
I love that screensaver. That's the Apple TV screensaver.
Oh.
Hacked as, no, I didn't do it, but someone ported it into the Mac.
That's fancy.
Okay, so let's get into XD. It's funny because as you were doing your last stream, I was hearing you say how I could use Cloud documents better because I was like, where did my Cloud document go?
Right.
So I'm gonna open up, I set up some templates for some of these things. So I set up this template for block framing, and you can see that it's different than a wireframe in as much as there's not as much detail, right? And I don't think you actually need it to be even this detailed. This is pretty detailed even for a block frame. I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna duplicate it. If you hold down Alt and you click and drag an artboard or any element, Alt Control, it'll duplicate it automatically, which is really nice. You can see I have this feature turned on where I'm looking at, I have my layout turned on so I can see the grid lines. Also, the default layout, if you're new to XD, is like this, like kind of, in my opinion, kind of obnoxious, like blue. So I always change it to grayscale.
Yeah.
And turn it way down so that I can have these nice clean layout lines. So I'm gonna start here. I'm gonna rename this artboard. Is that what you call them, artboard?
Mm-hmm. And I love that you're naming your artboards from the scratch, from the start. Because I was actually in my stream this morning, I touched on the fact that you can now search through layers and groups, and because we have search in the layers panel now.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not naming things as you go, and then you want to find something, it's just impossible.
Oh, I'm not good at doing it for the rest of my things. But some things, yeah, if you need to find it, you should definitely name it.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna just say, this is gonna be the home hero banner. I'm gonna do this quickly. It's not gonna take me very long.
Okay. Raphael's asking, when you finish your wireframes, do you use those same artboards when applying the visual UI designs?
Yes, I do. And I'll show that as well. I take those wireframes and I basically convert them to a final design and it's an easy way to, and it makes the design much easier when you have the wireframes as a starting point, because it almost feels like cheating because you already have everything laid out and now you're like dropping in photos, you're changing the text, you're adding color. It makes it so much easier to design and you don't have to think about everything all at once. And that's really the point of the process is by the time I get to the mockups and I have high fidelity wireframes, I don't have to think about where everything goes. It makes it much easier to just focus on the aesthetic. And when I'm working on the wireframes, I don't have to worry about the aesthetic. I can just focus on placement, right? And when I'm working on the wireframes, I don't have to think about where the content goes because I just did the content blocking. So,
yeah.
So hero banner will go here. I know that I would like to do a blurb of kind of about them because that's part of the problem, right? Is people don't understand exactly what they're offering. So I want to do something about them and something about their services.
And for those asking about dark mode in XD, I would love, do you want dark mode in XD? What are your thoughts?
I wouldn't mind it, yeah, okay. For sure.
See,
would you use it?
That's an interesting question. So I would use it. I would love dark mode in XD, but the way you said that, I wouldn't mind it. It all comes down to priorities. Obviously, the team wants dark mode. I want dark mode. I bug them all the time about dark mode. A lot of you want dark mode. But if you go to adobeXD.uservoice.com, dark mode is actually much lower on the priority list voted by all of you than things like hover or resizing symbols, things that would actually benefit our lives, things that are in the works. So I think dark mode will be, we'll get to it once some of the higher priority items are kind of, out of the way. And I did see someone, I don't remember where it was, but someone was asking, how can this be a job? It looks like something a kid would do. What are your thoughts on when someone says design is just something children do? I know it's a very controversial question, but somebody seems very adamant that a child could do these designs.
Oh, you mean the simplicity of
Possibly.
kind of block framing or wireframing?
Yeah. Or just design in general. I hear that from time to time.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting profession because it's kind of like saying, how could the Mona Lisa be like worth millions of dollars? It's just paint and canvas, right? And that's really anything we create. It's not about like the ability to throw stuff on a page or smear paint on a canvas. It's the skill that creates something that's valuable, right?
Right.
And design is one of those things where you can literally, oh, what's happening?
Go on, keep going.
It's something that that we're able to take nothing and create something. And so it is simple in terms of you're just laying down rectangles and text, but that's not where the value comes in. The value comes in the problem solving that you're doing for clients. And and for the solution that's at hand.
Absolutely. So we have fireworks, which means it's time for Chat and Win. In a second, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want you to type in the chat if you can have one new feature in Adobe XD, what would that be? And we'll pick a random commenter, and they will win 100 free stickers from stickermule.com. We'll see you in a second. And we are back. So let us know, if you can have one new feature in Adobe XD, what would it be? Blend mode. Someone said free feature. Adobe XD is free. There's a free version of it, and it's pretty decent. Dark mode. Okay. Oh, look at all the dark. Now they're just trolling us.
It's all dark mode.
They're just trolling us now. Live preview. I would assume for Android and Windows.
Font preview would be nice. I would.
Fonts are getting some love this year.
I really love that.
Gradients on borders. I would like that too.
Effects.
Look at all this stuff. Banana. Okay. All right.
A lot of dark mode.
Photoshop has a banana tool. Maybe they want that. Rulers. Rulers is something that the team is definitely looking into. And Anthony Sanchez is our winner. You've just won 100 free stickers from stickermule.com. And I would encourage you, the rest of you, to go to adobeXD.uservoice.com. And if you do have these features that you want, make sure to upvote them, because the team uses that to prioritize what they work on. And if you did not, I don't know where the URL is, but if you did not win, if you go to stickermule.com, you can get 10 stickers for $1. There's the URL, stickermule.com/Adobe Live 19, 10 stickers for just $1. Cool.
Congratulations.
Yeah. We'll have more chat and wins throughout the day and also throughout the week if you didn't win.
Cool. All right, back to the block framing. So I'm going to expand this artboard. And by the way, if you are expanding artboards and you have this little button turned on, responsive resize, what you're going to see is this behavior. And if you don't know where that button is, that could be frustrating.
And that's the reason why responsive resize is off by default on artboards, but on by default on groups and layers.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm going to turn that off because I don't want it to intelligently expand. And then I'm going to keep going here. So I have about services. I have the two kind of areas that they serve, commercial, residential. And then I'm going to add down here meet us. Something that kind of gives a call to explore, getting to know them a bit.
Now, when you're going through these different phases, blocking things out and even drawing things on paper, when do you start sharing the process with your clients? Do you share any of the blocks with them, or do you wait until it's a little bit more refined?
I do share. I don't share the block framing. That's typically done in my notebook, and that's usually done really so that I can be set up for wireframes. When I have the wireframes, I definitely share those with the clients, and I get feedback on that. And that takes some educating clients because you have to let them know, like, these are supposed to look ugly. They're supposed to look simple. The whole point is mapping out content.
Yep.
It's the UX part of the UI that you're doing. It's figuring out where stuff goes. So it doesn't matter how many times I explain it. I almost always have clients who are like, but could we have a little more color? I'm like,
right.
Yeah, okay.
But sometimes, a lot of times the reason that designers do not include color at phases like this is because clients will get too distracted by the color and the pretty pictures, and they'll overlook the actual layout, which is what matters at this point.
That's totally it. So I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna do projects. I probably should tell you guys this. So this is the sitemap. Home, projects, about, where do I have that written down? I have all these examples. Home projects, about, project detail, which.
And for those working on today's challenge, which again is to create a photo gallery for web or mobile, You might actually get some tips when Josh is creating these photo sections. We have about an hour until we'll review some of them that do come in. And if you don't get it in now, you can definitely submit it for the next stream and the next stream after that.
Okay, so this is the basic sitemap. We're actually, for this, because we just have limited time and I want to get through the whole process all the way to finished designs, we're just going to focus on these 4 pages. So home projects, a project detail page, so showing what that would look like if you click into a project. About, and then there's a partner program and a contact page, but we're not going to go over those in this broadcast. So you see I just duplicated these artboards. I know that I want to have a residential and a commercial section. So this is going to be projects. I'm going to say this is going to take up about half. We're going to mix these projects, so we're going to stack them like this. So you could kind of see thumbnails of them mixed together to see, how their different approach to residential versus commercial. You could see that in one page as kind of this magazine layout. That's the idea.
Jan says, person, hey Jan, why are you wearing shades in front of your computer? Me, I have XD open. It's so bright. And it kind of reminds me of that one time. Photoshop is always in dark mode for me, like dark, dark, dark mode. And when I had to reinstall it one time and I cleared the preferences and it was just the pure gray mode, blinding.
So we're going to put their process in here and we're going to put their partner program because we want to, that was part of the problem that we're trying to work on is showing what they do and what they don't. And the projects page, which is basically their portfolio. I did misspell projects, by the way. That's part of where we want to do it. We want to show their capabilities, right? That's what helps define the success. And there'll be a footer. Okay, so we're going through these pretty quick. We'll get to the wireframes shortly. Let's do project detail page. Project detail page. Oh, I just triggered the preview.
Oh,
I didn't mean to do that. What is it?
Enter, I think. Command return. Yeah,
oh, cool.
And so Matt's saying a feature or enhancement like repeat grid where you can rearrange the items within it. The team might be thinking about that.
So this is an individual project page. We're going to say we want to show the project name with some sort of hero banner photo. And then we want to show process shots. And this is something that I talked to them about, is we don't want to just show, we want to tell the story of the project. We want to say, hey, look, this was the before and after. This was the build out. These were some of the project plans. So we want to have a big section for that. Process photos. And then we want to show final result photos. Okay. And then we'll have our footer here, okay? And again, most of the time I'd be doing this here, like sketching it out on my notebook. That's just harder to show. And then lastly, we will have our about page. And we'll have a nice hero photo of the Weedmans or their space or something. We'll do about text here. And then we're gonna do bios. Bios and photos. So we'll list all the people that work there with photos of them.
And how important is consistency as you're, duplicating these artboards? It looks like you have the same kind of process and same layout. You have the hero image and then a smaller one below and then a little bit larger one. Do you want to kind of continue that throughout the entire theme?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you work on a website, I mean, one of the things I really like about XD is that you can like lay out all your artboards together. And so you can see that, the kind of design patterns that you're developing in the project. You can say, okay, this is the format that we're using for these pages. If suddenly on one of these pages, I went from, a vertical scroll to a horizontal scroll because I thought that would be a cool feature, that would not be consistent with the design patterns I'm using, throughout the rest of the page. So I think that's one of the things that you actually want to do. You know, good design, whether it's in fonts or it's in page layout or whatever, it actually repeats and reuses elements throughout the whole project.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got these really will act as just the basic guides for the wireframes. I have them on my notebook, so I'm not going to use this file for the wireframes. We have people still talking about light and dark mode. What did you unleash here?
I don't know. It's just
Jeez.
Now it's Star Wars. I'm surprised Val isn't in here talking about dark mode and dark forces and stuff.
All right, let's go on to wireframes. Okay, so I set up this template also. This is kind of my starter template for wireframes. You can find all sorts of templates that are already pre-made.
Yep.
In Adobe. Where do you get those? Is it in the plugins?
They're actually, it's in, where is it? I think if you go to the home screen, there's a resources. It might be in the add-ons section. There's somewhere in there you can go to resources on the XD website, and there's a ton of UI kits, and we're always releasing new ones.
Got it. Okay, awesome. So you can make your own. I tend to make my own because I had pretty simple needs with my wireframes. I don't. This is for desktop also, by the way. But I don't necessarily need them to be super complicated. I'll say that I did set up really basic styles here. So, oops. See, I can click on text and I can choose, which style I want. I've set up basic H1, H2, H3, and that just makes it easier if you're working with. Well, any file really, you should set up styles and symbols.
Yeah, I love the assets panel.
It's really awesome. It's really awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna start off here. You notice I almost always just duplicate artboards. It's just because I'm lazy.
Yeah, you might as well, right? A lot of the content you're gonna be using is already there.
I'm gonna say WDP because that is the name of Weedman. I'm gonna zoom in a little more too, so we have this a little more defined. I'm gonna use a photo banner here, and I know kind of from talking with them, I wanna have some big bold text on here. I'm gonna say partner, because that is the name of their, oops, I have that on. Their Weedman Design Partners. I'm gonna say design and create. And then we're showing a little bit of like, look, there's a process here that we can follow. By the way, this little blue handle, that is your viewport.
Mm-hmm.
So moving that around will affect, when you preview this, how tall your viewport is. You can also control it by just clicking on the artboard and then saying viewport, let's say, if I make it 900. Now it's taller, right? So that's helpful to see like what's above or below the fold, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
I didn't name this, so I need to do that.
Yeah, and that link that Andrew posted will take you to the resources page on Adobe XD's website, where there are, I think there's a few font packs, there's a ton of UI kits. Some people call them template. Actually, a question for the chat, do you prefer the phrase template or UI kit? Because we kind of go back and forth on what we should call them. I think UI kit is more suitable for what is offered there because there's a lot more than just a few artboards that kind of get you started. There's sometimes icons, there's fonts, there's a lot of different things within that kit.
Oops. New projects. Okay. So we set up our banner here. It's our header banner. I also want to put the name of Weedman Design Partners since people don't know what WDP is. Weedman Design Partners. You can tell this is just Helvetica. I do everything, and when I do my wireframes, I use Helvetica just because it's a simple, clean font.
It is.
And you don't need to get super complicated. You actually want to avoid using, complicated or distracting fonts. Kind of go for the vanilla of fonts if you could.
Comic Sans.
Not that. What is that, like the rainbow sherbet of fonts?
I forgot who, I think it was either Peter Del Tondo or Chris Cannon. One of them do all their wireframes in Comic Sans.
Oh, really?
Because it forces them to go back and focus on fonts and not focus on everything else. It's interesting.
Terrible.
I know.
But that'd be a good exercise.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna use I know I'm gonna get some, you guys could talk about it, but I'm gonna use a hamburger menu.
I like hamburger menus.
They've gotten a lot of hate lately, you know.
I'm not against it.
But I'm gonna label it, so I feel like that's like best practice. Like I'm not just gonna use the plain hamburger menu.
Okay.
It's interesting because even if something, if people say it's a bad UI practice or whatever, it's kind of like the internet gets to determine, and people now understand what a hamburger menu is, even though they didn't used to. So I'm gonna do very simple navigation because it's for designers, because I wanna keep it super clean. I wanna keep basically their logo up here, their menu here, and if they click that, we'll do like a pop-out menu. Okay, so let's move down the page. So that'll be a photo that we drop in. Make this artboard bigger. Then I'm gonna grab a header from over here. Let's see, how about a H2?
Here's an interesting question someone asked, Matt asked, with you know, Photoshop going mobile, it's gonna be available on the iPad this year. Would you also wanna see an XD app on mobile?
On mobile?
Mm-hmm, like a full-on XD app.
Oh, for designing?
Yeah. Like this, what you're using now on an iPad.
Maybe. I don't know if I would use it. But I'd like, you know, I don't know.
I know.
I don't know.
It's weird, isn't it?
I'm trying to think through it. Like, could I ever get used to designing on an iPad?
Yeah.
Maybe. Are you guys thinking about doing that?
I don't know. But I hear that a lot.
That people want it?
Yeah.
Really?
But it's also, I feel the same as you. I'm not sure that, because I did at one point, I hooked my iPad up with one of those, you know, screen sharing apps. And so I had my iPad on the couch and I was using XD as it kind of mirroring from my desktop. And it was okay. I mean, there's definitely things with when you're using your fingers or the pencil that are different.
Yeah.
That kind of get in the way. So I don't know.
It's hard to know, like, my bias because I've been doing this for so long like this. Like, is there a better way and could it be better, you know?
Yeah.
I would definitely try it.
Absolutely.
Because I have an iPad Pro at home that I'm like, you know, would love to put to use.
Yeah, we hear that a lot though.
Huh. So I'm working here with text. I was gonna mention there's this little box over here that lets you choose if you want the text to be within a bounding box or not. I'm gonna put it in a box, and that allows me to control the text by making the box smaller, which is what I wanted to do. So I'm gonna say interior design from studs to surface because I want people to know that they are doing interior design, not decoration. And I also want something to say, look, we're going from the inside of the wall to the outside of the wall, right? And then I'll just put some dummy text here. I heard there is a Lorem Ipsum plugin.
There is.
Which I have not gotten yet because I'm like fixed on my old little tools that I use. But I think that would be super useful. If you don't use Lorem Ipsum in your designs, I think it's pretty essential for, you know, creating a wireframe, especially when you don't actually have the content yet.
I'm waiting for the Bacon Ipsum plugin. I love that one, Bacon Ipsum.
I have not used that. What does it do? Does it just replace?
Yeah, it's basically the same thing, but it talks about bacon and meats, and it's strange, but it's delicious.
So I'm gonna put services here. So you see how I'm just using my template over here? I'm going in here, I'm just like stealing things.
Yeah.
And then I don't have to think about it really.
And that ensures that you're kind of sticking with the assets, the character styles that are saved in your assets panel.
Yes, exactly.
So if you do need to update them later on, they'll all update across the document.
So I'm gonna say commercial design, residential. Wow, I'm having a hard time typing.
Cupcake Ipsum is another good one.
These are not the actual services, but I'm kind of filling this with something that I know that they do, and that's okay too. You can kind of mix it with Lorem Ipsum as well as kind of placeholder content. Build out partner program. I'm gonna increase the line space here. And then I'll just add some little, I want to add some little bullets, and this is the easiest way to do it. That's a trick if you don't have well, XD doesn't have, I don't think they have bullet formatting, but a really easy solution to that is to grab your text box, copy and paste it, and just move it over. And then the line height's the same, everything lines up.
Right.
And you can create, you know, whatever bullets you want, pluses or whatever. I'll make those a little bigger. Oops. Also, if you're working in text, hitting escape lets you exit the text that you're working on and use your hotkeys. Okay, so we've got a nice, I'm actually gonna check this, which is, I really love in XD that you can do this. You can check this, scroll down, see what that looks and feels like.
It's looking pretty good. I like the feel of that top section.
The big chunky letters. That was one of the things that we talked about. I probably shouldn't, I'm jumping ahead, but in our mood boards, you'll see one of the things that we looked at was being chunkier and bolder with their designs.
Yep.
Okay, so now I'm gonna move on to this bottom section. I know I want to show commercial and residential, right? So I'd like to show some imagery from that. And I'm using a grid here, but I think for this I want to go off grid and I want to go full width for these photos. And you can do that for sections.
Breaking the boundaries.
It's a little, it's breaking the rules, but I think it's more dramatic, you know? It breaks up sections better if you can do that. I want to bring these all the way.
And Abel is asking, are you designing on the fly or following requirements?
Well, really both, right? I mean, that was part of the point of going through this exercise is I'm just following this now. I know where this stuff is. That, to be totally transparent, you know, you see people come on Adobe Live and they'll do like all this stuff in, you know, a total of 5 or 6 hours. In reality, a website like this from start to finish, I tell clients it could be anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks.
Right.
And that's, you know, 6 to 8 weeks is, if you're working with multiple websites and multiple clients, is not uncommon. So I am working on the fly, but I also, it's kind of like a cooking show. You have to prepare your elements ahead of time. You kind of have to have an idea of what you're doing so you don't get on the show and not know what you're doing, right? I'm seeing the top of my head's getting kind of...
Very quickly, Matt was asking about border control in XD, asking if we're going to get more control, top, right, left, bottom, or whatever. We do have that if you actually select one of your shapes. On the border, if you add a border, you can actually, hold on a second. Oh, you know what?
With commas or something?
No, I'm wrong. I'm thinking of radius.
Oh.
Yes, so border control would be nice. Additional border
radius
control.
here.
I was thinking of radius.
So I could say
change the radius,
10, 10, and just round 2 corners.
Right.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah, Matt, let me know what you're thinking about when you say border control on the different sides so we can pass that along to the team. But I know that they are looking into and actively working on a lot of these smaller enhancements to many things like borders and so on and so forth.
I want to mention too, when you work with elements, one of the really cool things that XD lets you do is this is a group.
Yep.
But when I resize this, I want my little mountains to stay in the middle of the box.
Oh yeah, so there are constraints. So if you go to
like so manual. I've got here manual.
Yep.
You see how I have it fixed width and fixed height,
yep.
and I have it centered, so it's going to stay in the center. If I click this right little tab, so stick to the right,
yep.
and I say, let's say I don't want to fix the height of it, but I do want to fix the width of it. So now it'll keep it stuck to the right. It'll keep the padding, but it'll let me change the height of the mountains, but not the width.
Yep.
So that's a really great tool when you're creating groups, so that you can easily resize them. It's particularly for responsive layouts and that kind of thing. I like that we're talking about sushi now.
Oh, I can go for some sushi. We have at the other place, we have sometimes a sushi chef. That's a hard word to say.
Sushi chef.
Sushi chef. So there might be some over there today. We can go after lunch. Or
awesome.
Before lunch, whatever.
Actually, I don't. So I'm gonna have, these are the 2 sections, commercial, residential. I'm gonna use this, I'm gonna put buttons here. See, I didn't align this properly. This should have been centered. And I should have said, I'm gonna line these up, and I probably should have said that I wanted this to stay in the center. Fixed with, okay. So I'm gonna say, actually I'll do commercial first. Commercial.
And I don't know if people noticed in the chat, but as you were making changes to the layout of that button, because it's a symbol, it also changed on the original one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they kept up to date, but you can go ahead and override text as well.
Yeah, actually, I think that's a really cool. I'm trying to center these. So that button is a symbol, and so what's really awesome is if I go in here and I want to edit that button, say I change the fill, so everything and say you had 10 different artboards,
yep.
they would all change together, which is super useful. Okay, so we've got commercial, residential, and then I wanted to have a meet us type section at the bottom. They have logo assets and stuff, and you can put that into the wireframe sometimes. I'm not going to, because I'm going to just keep it really simple. I'm just going to put a big W here, because I think that'll look nice.
Yeah. Someone's asking about hover animations in XD, and those are definitely in the works. I think that's the #1 most requested feature right now on user voice. So hover is in the works. In the meantime, you can probably use a tap trigger to fake it, but hover is coming.
Nice. That's great. I'll just say meet the team behind Weedman Design. And then I'll put maybe another button here. Actually, I don't want that dark button because it'll compete up with this light button.
When you're working on layouts and sections like this, how do you decide what's going to be bold, what's going to be regular or light or whatever it might be?
Well, I think I tend to, and I think that's the right way to think about it, is you want to think about the page layout, but then once you're working on the page, you want to think about, of that section as it's kind of its own little world. So using good design principles of balance and those kind of things. But one thing is you got to think about when someone's scrolling, you don't want to distract them with like too many of the same elements, right? So I wouldn't have like 5 dark buttons all in the same viewport. That's what's partly useful with the preview, is you can kind of say, what does this flow look like when someone's actually flowing through the page? So you're kind of presenting them with one idea at a time. You're saying, okay, here's the projects if you want to do that. But if you want to scroll down, then we want to teach you about what we actually do. And if you keep going, then we're going to show you options. Okay, you're ready to choose. Do you want us to work on a commercial project or residential? If you're still scrolling, and that's the way I think about it, the further someone scrolls down the page, it's kind of like they're ready for more. They're ready for more meat. They're ready to dive in and learn a little more. So you can kind of go from casual content up top, above the fold, to kind of more in-depth content.
Nice.
And then we're gonna top this off just with a footer. So we'll put a line here just to separate. And then I'm gonna grab a pretty common way to do your footers is to kind of repeat the logo. And then I'm gonna put the links. So home, projects, about, partner, program, contact. And I probably should put a copyright for good measure, right?
Always, you gotta have a copyright.
Gotta have that in there. We'll put it over here.
Do you ever use a repeat grid for links, or do you find that sometimes the spacing gets a little bit funky?
For links, you mean where you can create a link and then?
Yeah, like down there at the bottom, right?
Yeah.
You had the home projects, whatever.
Yeah.
Have you used repeat grids for something
never.
like that?
I didn't know you could use it for links. So I can go like this?
Yep. And then pull that out.
Oh my God.
Now, I will say that
magic.
sometimes, depending on the justification of those links,
yeah,
and the length of certain labels, the spacing could get a little bit funky.
Okay, so let's see.
Just a fair warning.
Home about. Oh, because it doesn't adjust.
Right.
Oh, I see.
But I found that if you use a center justification, it usually kind of balances things out.
Yeah. That's cool. I did not know you could do that with.
Yeah. Sometimes it works well.
Okay, so we have the basics of a wire. I saw someone ask a question. I was just in the middle of designing things. they asked, do you have to do grayscale? And the answer is you don't have to do anything. But I think using a lot of people will use like all blue hues or all red hues or something like that. I think that's okay. But I think the main point is to stay kind of monochromatic and to not distract your client or yourself with all the pretty colors kind of thing.
Absolutely. So we did just hit the deadline for our daily challenge, which was to create a photo gallery in XD for mobile or web. And if we hop over to my screen over here, let's see, here we go. We have about 3 of them we're going to take a look at. And again, if you didn't get your submission in now, you can submit it to the next stream or the one after that, and they will take a look at it. So let's say you can either look here or there, wherever. And Zaza is asking about hover effects. Those are coming, definitely coming. So this one, I don't remember the name of this, but this one was, here we go. And I don't know if it's working. Well,
maybe it's just an image, yeah?
Oh,
no interaction, maybe?
It's possible, yeah. So what are your thoughts on the general?
So it was a mobile photo gallery. Was that
looks like it, yeah.
Yeah. I think overall, it has a nice aesthetic, like it's light and it's clean. I think when the whole focus of it is the photos, kind of the more style you add to it can actually distract from the photos. So the rounded corners, the drop shadow, all that can make these look more like they're kind of like app icons or something.
Right.
So if you really wanted to focus on the photo and giving someone a preview of the photo, probably a wider format and letting the photos be a little bigger and have a little more space would make a lot more sense. Overall, I think you did keep it pretty clean, which is good though.
Yep. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of drop shadows in cases like this, but in some cases they work if they're very subtle. But for something like this, I'm not sure they're working so well.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, we got this one. Is there a name on it? Nemen. I believe he's here in the chat. Let's see. We have hotspots.
Oh, okay, cool.
All right.
Oh, nice.
So I would imagine this would be like a drag trigger.
Yeah.
Which auto animate does not work on the web yet. Yet. Soon.
I noticed that.
Yet.
But I assumed it will soon.
Very soon, maybe. All right. Down here, another. I would assume that would be a drag.
I would say one thing about this, I like the UI. I think it's pretty standard. I think it's easy to imagine someone using this with their finger and swiping, right? Because we're used to that motion.
Yeah.
One thing that with any photo website, and it applies to actually what I'm working on now, which is an interior design website, where the photos are the star of the show. They are the color. Using a colored background like the green or something, it really could distract from the photos someone's trying to look at, and it might clash with the photos or create a lot of dissonance visually. So I think it's always good to go with more muted or even grayscale when you're working with photo apps.
Yeah, we kind of see it here. There's a little bit of a border to separate this photo from the background, but even with that border, there's the green on the green is a little bit distracting, like you said.
Yeah. But it's nice and clean, and the UI, I think layout is good.
Yeah. And then finally, we have this one from, I believe this was not Tim, as he puts himself. It might be Tim in one of the moderators. Using a lot of Adobe Live photos. I like it. Oh, no.
Oh, who's that?
What is that, Tim? A little Photoshop action going on.
That's funny. Awesome.
Yeah. Tim always throws some jokes in there.
Oh, nice. It's nice, clean, stark. I like it. I think the only suggestion could be those photos could be a little bigger, but it does give you a nice grid layout.
Yeah.
To see everything.
Except that one. Don't make that bigger.
Yeah, make that the banner image, please.
Cool.
Awesome.
So again, if you didn't get your submission in on time, the next set of the host and then the guest, my mind is blanking on the names. I'm sorry. We'll definitely take those and review them later on. Alrighty, let's hop back over to yours.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
Back to the wireframing. We're quickly. It's amazing how fast the time goes once you're presenting, and you've got to. I always think like, am I gonna have enough content to fill the time? And then you get on there, you're like, I better hurry up.
Yeah. You spend half the time talking and not designing.
Yeah. Exactly.
We all do it.
All right. So this is gonna be my projects wireframe. Get rid of these. I'm going to, let's see, I'm gonna use an H1 header, and I'm gonna say commercial. So I'm gonna just jump into these sections. I want these sections to be visual and kind of magazine style layout.
Okay.
Maybe I don't want that to be. Is there any way to access the styles from this panel, or do I need to go over here and do it?
Yeah, you have to go over there at the moment.
So let's make it a little smaller.
Paul is asking, how do you present your designs to the client if the designs has animations?
If the designs have animations, I mean, Adobe XD has some really great animations, and you can, when you click here and you go to preview, you can share this exact same thing minus the animation transition.
Right, for now.
You could share the same thing with the clients. So you could say share, this gets uploaded to the cloud, and it creates a link. So share document, I can invite someone to it. Does it just generate a link as well? Can I just say share for review or?
Yep. So share for review will actually share the prototype. So if it's wired up,
okay,
they'll be able to see that and kind of navigate through it, and then auto animate when it's available soon-ish.
Yeah.
We'll have those animations, and then share for development will share character styles, colors, and any marked assets.
Oh, okay, awesome. So create public link, you could create that, and then you can actually send that to a client.
Yep. And then for now, until Auto Animate is available on the web, if you're on the Mac, you can actually record a video of that prototype directly within XD. And then if you're on Windows, Windows 10, you can use Game Bar to do basically the same thing.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I just generated that link. I'm pasting it in my browser. And there's my prototype. So that was the home, that was the, I would need to omit that from it, but it just uploaded this, right, into the viewport. But you can scroll over here. So yeah, if these had hotspots, you would, the client would be able to just click through them. And that is super useful, and the animations will work and everything. It's really slick. And I would definitely, I was speaking with another designer the other day, and I was saying, well, how do you present your design? She was like, oh, I always send PDFs.
Right, a lot of people do that.
But then she was also saying, well, no one looks at my PDFs. And I'm like, yeah, well, it's a lot. There's a lot more work involved to look at a PDF versus click on a link and browse through it and experience it. And that's the difference. Is this lets a client experience the project and what it's like for them to actually go through the website or the app. Whereas the PDF does not give. It's a lot more work for them to process. How is this going to look like, when I'm going through it? So I would really, really encourage you to use that share link.
Yeah, the experience can make or break, whether a client likes what you're presenting. Raphael is asking about making prototype recording available in Windows as well. The team is working on it. We're working closely with Microsoft to make that happen because there's some limitations in Windows 10 that doesn't really allow it very well. So it's not completely on XD, but it's not it's a complicated process, but it's being worked on. Engineering, it's difficult.
Sorry. So I'm gonna do this kind of magazine style layout with these. These are all gonna be thumbnails of projects in the commercial section. And I'm just copy pasting. The point is to kind of get a feel for the overall layout, right? And then I'm gonna do residential down here. Oops. No breach in privacy on the cloud. No, it generates private links that are not searchable or indexed by Google, right?
Yep.
When you promote, when you create something. So.
Yeah, you can also password protect those links as well if you need to.
Yeah. So I'm actually gonna go. Okay.
And of course, if you're working with a client that has a very strict NDA, that's something you'll have to talk about, whether you can, have files available in the cloud or any sort of sharing service.
Yeah. Move these around a little just to spice it up. Let's see. Okay, so we've got this kind of magazine style layout. I know from my Blockframes that I want process and a partner program here. Okay. I'm gonna just look at preview this real quick too. So that looks cool. What I like about this layout is that it lets someone like quickly with a quick scroll, they get like an overall aesthetic of what the capabilities are of the portfolio versus some of the ones we were looking at, it was like you get to see one image at a time. Whereas I really prefer like kind of like Behance where I can scroll through someone's project and I get to see like the richness of the design process and everything they've worked on together. I really like that. So the sections I want now down here are something about their process. I'm gonna grab an H3 header. And you kind of use, sorry, I'm jumping around. You kind of use smaller headers as you go down the page, right? That's kind of standard. H1s are big and bold.
And why is that?
I think because it's kind of like the basics of type in general. Is headlines lead into subheadlines, subheadlines lead into intro paragraphs get you to get to the paragraph.
Yep.
And that's actually the whole structure of most pages in general. Is it's the biggest idea at the top, and the further down you go, things actually get smaller text-wise, from the typography standpoint, but they also get more detailed, and it's really like the path of information foraging. So someone who's looking for basic information will just read headlines. Someone who wants detailed information about a service will dive down deeper and deeper. So I'm gonna say our process. This needs to be bigger also. XD is so fast, it's amazing.
It is, we have documents that are just like thousands of artboards that we use for testing. And I think you were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy fast how it handles some of this stuff.
So I'm gonna say our process. By the way, Command 1 will zoom you to 100%.
Yep. Command 3 is a good one as well.
What is Command 3?
It'll zoom that selected element.
Oh, I didn't know about that. What does Command 2 do?
That's a good question.
It looks like it kind of does the same thing. Okay, so I'm gonna say our process with some content there. And then I wanna say something about the partner program. Oh man, I'm running out of time so fast. Happens quick. Okay. And then the last section is the footer. Okay, so that's gonna be the start. And also I should have made this into a symbol. So I'm gonna group this. I'm going to go to Object, Make Symbol. And you'll see how the icon changed over here. Now it says symbol 3-1. I'm gonna name it footer. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna replace this so that I have proper symbol there. Yeah,
and this way, if you're not familiar with working with symbols in Adobe XD, because this is now a symbol, Josh can go into any of them, not just, it doesn't have to go into every single one and make changes, and it'll just kind of populate throughout the entire document.
Yeah, like one of the things I noticed is I have periods in here, which is annoying.
Oh yeah, because Mac OS has the thing where you press the spacebar twice, it does a period.
Yes, it's annoying.
I know.
So I just removed those, and now they're removed. Wait. Oh, why didn't that remove it?
Oh, because it's text.
Oh, because it's text. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Well, fail.
Well, symbols are getting some love this year too, so maybe that'll fix it.
Maybe they'll ask you what you want to do.
Actually, hold on, wait. If you go back to there, right click.
Okay.
Push overrides, maybe.
It worked.
Aha, there we go.
Perfect.
Forgot about that.
That's great.
Push overrides.
That's awesome.
Push it real good. Robert has a question. He says he's new to XD and UI and UX general. He's still confused how you get this onto the web, or is it strictly a mockup tool? Now, there's two ways to answer this. So,
yeah.
From my perspective, on the XD side, because we get this a lot, can we offer the ability to export to HTML or CSS, whatever it might be? It's tricky because there's so many different ways of coding, and it'll never be perfect, especially when you're getting very elaborate. It's difficult to give you code that would be acceptable. There are some plugins that try to do it, and they do it okay, but it's still not perfect. But from a designer's perspective, what's the process look like Once you finish the mock-ups, everything looks good, the client approves it, what do you do with that after?
Was that a question for me?
Yeah, you.
Sorry, could you restate it?
Sure. So
I was reading someone's.
Oh yeah. So when you are, when we're after this whole week is finished, and the client loves the way things are looking, what's the process of actually building out this website?
Oh, okay, yeah. So for this particular client, I actually do build outs. So sometimes I will code them or put them into WordPress or something like that. But I would agree that having an export feature from here would probably not give you the ideal code that you would want. And Adobe has experimented in the past with like content management, like publication and things like that. But the process would be typically to give this to a developer, and they could use this as their guide for building it out in there isn't a website builder, is there, with Adobe?
We had Muse.
I remember Muse, yeah.
Rest in peace.
Okay, rest in peace.
Dreamweaver, probably.
Dreamweaver, yeah. If you want to use one of the popular website builders too, a lot of times a developer can use those as starting points, as templates, and convert what you're doing into that. But I usually would be very careful when you work with clients that they know that you're not going to build this out, because they don't always understand that, right? Sometimes they think that me doing this, and when they look at that preview, right, they think that, oh, that's the website. Just put that online. Like, why can't you just publish that? The same question that someone was asking. So you have to be really clear that if you don't do that, and you're not going to do that for them, that build out is an additional cost, and that you can either help them find a developer to do it, or it's up to them to do it. So being clear about where that responsibility lies, and that it will be an additional cost, because sometimes the build out could cost almost as much as the design or more, who knows?
That's true.
Depending on, especially if it's an app or something, the build out will definitely cost more than the design.
Oh, I would assume so.
So I think that handoff process has to be well thought out.
Yep.
By the way, I'm Josh, for whoever asked who's the maroon t-shirt guy.
Maroon t-shirt guy.
That's my new handle.
Few additional questions while you're wrapping things up. Andy is asking, is there integration from other CC applications like Photoshop or Illustrator? So there are a few. So one, you can bring in Illustrator and Photoshop files into Adobe XD, and it brings in all those layers, the groups, a bunch of other different things. You can just continue working in XD and expanding on those designs. You can also use your Creative Cloud libraries, and I've shown this in the past, and maybe we'll show it at some point during this week, is that if you have an object or a group of layers in your Creative Cloud libraries, you bring it into Adobe XD, and then you want to edit it back in Photoshop or Illustrator, all you have to do is in that Creative Cloud library, just right-click on it, press Edit, and you go back to Photoshop. You can make those changes, and then it populates into Adobe XD. So there's definitely some integration there. Smart objects don't completely transfer over when you import a Photoshop file. They'll break those smart objects, I believe, at this point. But that's something that the team is definitely looking into.
And I think that it used to be like you have to do everything in Photoshop.
Right.
I think it's really smart that they are broken up now, right? And like Photoshop is for one purpose, XD's for one purpose, Illustrator's for one purpose. Otherwise, you just create this like bear of a program that you don't really.
And I was doing a lot of UI and UX design in Photoshop.
Yeah.
And it's once I finally switched to XD and realized how fast it was and things like repeat grids, it's just it changed the way I look at design, because Photoshop, it's great for photo editing and compositions and things like that, but UI and UX, it's not what it was built for.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say like that integration is key, and Adobe does it really well. Like all the products play really well together. So I'm working on the project detail page now. So I'm gonna put the project name at the top. I want to have some sort of intro text here that describes, what the project is. And I'm gonna add a little more text there. It's probably be a little meatier than that. Before I go too much further, actually, I want to show you guys too that one of the things with the prototyping, I kept hitting the play button, and this wouldn't come up because by default this is set as the home. There's this little home tab. So I'm gonna click on here. I believe now that is the home.
Yep.
And I wanna link this up, right? So I went into from design mode to prototype mode, and I will link up wireframes sometimes. That can give the clients an even better idea of what they're looking at. It's really easy. You drag that there literally, which is awesome. Tap, transition, dissolve. That's fine. I want this logo to go back home. If someone clicks on that, and then actually, I'm gonna transition this to here. I'll show you guys a cool transition called auto animate.
Now we're getting fancy.
This is gonna be really cool. So I'm gonna remove this background. I'm gonna use this same block, this object. I'm gonna paste it here, move back to design and make it big. So the idea is I want that thumbnail to expand and become the banner. And hopefully this works. So play, view projects. Oh, ooh, see how nice that is? So cool.
Yeah, and because those other elements, those other little thumbnails were not present on the next artboard, they just kind of faded away.
Yeah, yeah, it was such a cool feature. Actually, I'm gonna add a back arrow here so we can see what that looks like in reverse. So, oops. Oh, and then the other feature that I'm excited about is this flip.
Oh, object flip, yeah.
It becomes a back arrow.
It's so simple, but it's so cool.
So simple, but so useful.
More of that coming this year. More little features that'll benefit your life.
So I'm gonna link that back here. I'm also gonna do an auto animate. It actually already had that as a preset since that's what I did last time. Now I'm gonna say play. Click on that. Isn't that nice?
Oh yeah.
So cool. It's pretty satisfying.
Yep. You can do that all day.
Yeah, you just do that all day. So you see how very quickly, even with these kind of ugly gray wireframes, it's starting to feel like this kind of living, breathing design versus just static things, right? So we've got a lead kind of hero banner. We got the project name. Let's look at our blocks here. Process photos is what we want next. So I'm gonna grab, I'm still in prototype mode. If you see those little blue handles, it means you're in the wrong mode. Get out. I'm gonna grab these.
And I think Hartwig was asking why there are X's inside of those frames.
Well, actually, I forgot that I had this photo. Kind of the old school wireframing technique I usually have done has been to use X's in a box to show that an image is going to go there eventually. So it's just placeholder content. It makes it look kind of messy. So it's something that you could leave, you could omit and just use something like this is a little more indicative of, oh, there's going to be an image there.
Right.
That was me kind of using an old technique. For banners, I typically find that is actually a good way to do is use the X. For smaller images, I really probably wouldn't. So these are going to be process photos. I'm going to say, I'll use a little header here and say something. I'll just label this as process. And then I want these to be kind of this magazine grid type layout as well.
Kind of adds a little bit of a flair to the design.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It makes it a little more interesting. Adobe, the XD is really amazing when we get into the mockups and we start converting these. The fact that you can just drag photos in and it crops and like adjust. I mean, it makes it super it's going to be very satisfying when we convert this into a design because we'll just be able to like drag and drop all these photos and it'll suddenly look like a real website.
And especially if you start using repeat grids. I know it wouldn't be very easy with something like this because they're all different sizes. But if you are using repeat grids, you can grab hundreds of images, just drag them into a single image within the repeat grid and just distribute the whole thing.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, it's amazing.
Man, so cool.
Same works with text as well.
Wow.
Yep, you can just drag a text file into a repeat grid.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, cool stuff.
That's really neat.
Oh, we're just about time. So we're gonna wrap things up. Just very quickly before we head out to maybe eat some sushi. I don't know. What did you work on today?
So today I went through, let's go back to this little slide deck. We started off here. We did the research. We helped define the problem, and I talked about the kind of the auditing process, the competitive analysis research, and then actually interviewing the process with the client, with kind of a download interview. We went over block framing and wireframing and kind of what's the difference, right? That low fidelity to high fidelity. And then we got into the actual wireframes. Oh, I didn't show this graphic, but this is kind of the block frame, wireframe
there we go, yeah.
mockup, right? So from Mario to actual graphics. And so tomorrow for day 2, we're gonna be working on finishing the wireframes, and then we're gonna go into mood boards, which I'm pretty excited about because a lot of times that's a missing step. We don't go from wireframes to mood boards, we just go from wireframes directly to the finished design. But mood boards create a really nice, easy way for clients to be able to choose their aesthetic and be involved in that design process. And then they act as a really strong guide for when you move into the mock-up phase, you don't have to make as many decisions because you already have a lot of that figured out.
Yeah, and most times clients really do appreciate
they love
being
the mood
involved
boards
in the
actually.
process. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so that will wrap it up. Stay tuned. We have Heba and Melody coming up in just a few minutes, and we'll be back tomorrow. I'll be back later on today as well, but we'll be back tomorrow to break this down even further and make it look awesome. Well, you're gonna do the work. I'm doing nothing. All right, see y'all soon.
Great, thanks, bye.